Welcome to qiphyedu. Today we'll be looking at economics paper 12, February, March 2021. Alright, let's start. Okay, so for the first question, it says an American family is choosing between 4 holiday destinations in Europe, each at the same price. The table shows the family's order of preference for these holiday destinations. If the family goes to Barcelona, what is the opportunity cost of this choice? So now you can see that Barcelona is the first choice. And the definition of opportunity cost is the next best alternative forgone. So if the family goes to Barcelona, the opportunity cost of this choice is basically a trip to Paris, because Paris is at number 2, and for London and Venice is at number 3. So their order of preference is Barcelona first, Paris second. So if they say they don't go to Barcelona, then they'll go to Paris. But if they go to Barcelona, then they're giving up the chance of going to Paris because that's their second choice. So if the family goes to Barcelona, the opportunity cost of this choice would be to go to Paris. So the answer is C. Question 2. The diagram shows 2 production possibility curves for the economy, and which combination of movements correctly illustrates these changes in production. So we have short-run economic growth, long-run economic growth, and no economic growth. So if it's a short-run economic growth, that would be from within the PPC to a point on the PPC, so something like this, either K to M or K to L. And then the long-run economic growth is basically a shift in your PPC to upwards, and then this will only happen when there is an introduction, there's more raw materials and the state of technology has improved. And then this would be either a shift from L to N or M to N. And then if there's no economic growth, it's basically a movement of the point from this particular position to another position. Let's say like it shifts upwards or downwards. So for this, let's say for this example, let's say we are shifting downwards from L to M, or shifting upwards from M to L. This means that there's no economic growth because you're producing the same quantity for these 2 goods. So short-run economic growth would be K to L or K to M. So you can see that for CD is M to N, so it's not correct. So it's like K to L. And then for long-run economic growth, it's either L to N or M to N. So you can see that if it's L and N, there's no economic growth, so A is not correct. So the answer would be B. Question 3. What distinguishes the very long run from the long run? So for the long run, you can actually, all the factors of production can be changed. So, but then for the long run, you can change the factors of production. But in the very, very long run, like if you can see from this PPC, in the very long run, like I said, this is when you can when there's an improvement in state of technology, and also when there's an increase in raw material. And then here you can see that A says the ability to change resource allocation would not be correct. B, the ability to change the state of technology would be correct. And C, the absence of government market intervention, which is not correct. And D, the existence of variable factors production. This one would fall under long run. But changing the state of technology will be under very long run, because if you can change the state of technology, then the PPC curve that's originally already at its maximum combination would then be able to shift outwards even more, so that this would actually allow the long run PPC curve, the economic growth for the long run, to become a very long run when you change the state of technology. So you have to remember that for variable factors of production, this will be accomplished in the long run. And then for the state of technology, that would be the very long run. So answer is B. Question 4, which statement is a positive statement? The positive statement is basically factual, actual, and then it can be tested. But if it's a normative statement, it's based on opinion. So A, it says the distribution of income involved in most Western European countries is unequal, which is a positive statement. B, it says the government ought to increase income. This is a normative statement. C, it says there should be more legal rights. This one is an opinion. D, it says wages of those on low income should be increased. This is an opinion as well. So it has to be A. Because you can test the fact that whether or not the distribution of income involved in most Western European countries is unequal or not. This could be tested, right? And it could be a fact, because it's not like, in my opinion, I think the government should what. It's not present in this question, in this choice. And then for question 5, what could not cause a shift in an individual's demand curve for goods? That a shift could be a shift to the left or a shift to the right. So A, it says a change in advertising expenditure. This could probably increase demand, so it will shift to the right. B, it says a change in individual's income, which will also shift the demand curve. And then C, it says a change in individual's taste, which could also shift the demand curve. D, a change in price of Z will only result in a movement along the demand curve, because a change in price of Z would mostly be, let's say there's an increase in cost production, this will shift the supply curve to the left, or there's a decrease in cost production, it will shift the demand supply curve to the right. This will result in a point to move along the demand curve, so it will change the price. But the change of price would not result in the individual's demand curve to shift to left to right. So the answer is D. Question 6. The diagram shows the market for sugar, which is initially in equilibrium at the price of OP. So OP, you can see there's at point R, where that will be S equals D. The government then fixes the maximum price of OP1. And what will happen as a result? So you can see that the demand increases and the supply decreases, which means that there will be a shortage. So A, it says the reduction in farmers' revenue equal to PRSP1, which is not correct. That's not the reduction in farmers' revenue. And then B, it says expenditure on sugar will be equal to PRMO. So PRMO, that's not the expenditure. C, it says farmers' revenue would be P1UNO. P1UNO, which will be this entire thing, which is not correct. Because your revenue, because your demand now exceeds supply, so there's no way that you can cover up, you can balance out the demand. For example, let's say you have people demanding 50 quantities of a particular item, but you only have 30 quantities. So you end up selling 30 of these quantities and then multiplying it by the actual price. So let's say it's P1. So you'll only be this entire area, right? So there's no way that the farmers' revenue will be P1UNO. It's not correct. Producer surplus will be P1SP2. Yep, that's correct. That's the producer surplus because the price is at P1. Okay, so for question 7, the table shows the competitive market in equilibrium in 2 periods and what could explain the change from period 1 to period 2. So you can see that for period 1, the market price is 50 cents. Quantity traded is 10,000. Period 2 is 60 cents and quantity traded is 12,000. So you can see that even though there's an increase in price, the quantity traded is 12,000. And what could explain this change? A, it says an increase in price of complement, which is not correct because if there's an increase in price of complement, this will result in the demand to decrease for the original good. B, it says an increase in price substitute. Yes, this would be possible. C, it says the imposition of minimum price, which is not correct because it already says here competitive market, so there's basically no government intervention. And D, it says the imposition of indirect tax, which is also not correct. So answer is B. Question 8, which example of consumer behavior will create consumer surplus? So consumer surplus is basically the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay and what the consumer is actually paying for it. So one example would create consumer surplus. A, it says when a consumer does not spend all of their income in each month, which is not correct. B, it says when the consumer pays less than what they are willing to pay, which is correct. C, it says when the consumer throws away vegetables because they bought too much, which is not correct. This will create wastage. And D, when a good is purchased in order to resell it at a higher price, this will not result in consumer surplus. So answer is B. Question 9, a manufacturer reduces the price of its goods after developing a more efficient manufacturing process. It makes leather belts that compete against belts made of artificial material. And what are the likely outcomes of the change in the manufacturing process? So a manufacturer reduces its price of the price of its goods after developing a more efficient manufacturing process. Makes leather belts, so the supply would increase, so AB is wrong. And then the price of artificial belts would also decrease due to competition. Instead of increasing, it would decrease because now the price of leather belts have decreased, so the price of artificial belts will naturally decrease as well. So answer is C. Question 10, what is the likely price elasticity of supply of highly perishable goods and the goods that have low stocks? Both of them will result in inelastic PS, so answer is E. Because if let's say the good itself is highly perishable, the item cannot be stored for a very long time, so it's inelastic. The producer is very unresponsive to a change in price. And then goods that have low stocks would also be inelastic because the producers cannot respond to a change in the percentage change in price. So both of them will result in a P as inelastic. Question 11, the diagrams show the initial demand curve B1 and supply curve S1 for steel in the European Union. In 2018, European steel firms experienced rising energy prices. So European steel firms experience rising energy prices. This means that there is a shift in the supply curve to the left, because energy prices is basically affecting steel firms because they have to pay for higher energy prices. This will result in a higher COP, so a reduction in supply. For us is D. Because all the others, you see that it's a shift the supply curve to right, which is not correct. Another one is an increase in demand, and another one is a decrease in demand, so it's not correct. So it has to be a shift in the supply curve to left. Question 12, the market for wheat is in equilibrium at price P, with supply at 40 million tons. Due to a drought in the growing season, supply falls to 20 million tons, and which immediate action should be taken to maintain the equilibrium price at P. So, if let's say the quantity of wheat is at 20 million tons, that means that they will be at this position. Something like P1. So, in order for the price to be maintained at the equilibrium price of P, let's look at the 4 options here. A, it says grant the subsidies, which is not correct. I mean, the price has already dropped. B, the impose and indirect tax, which would not be correct as well, because that will shift the supply curve to left. So, nope. And then C, plant more wheat to increase supplies to 40 million tons, which is not possible because this is not an immediate action. This is a very time-consuming action. So D, use existing stocks of wheat to increase supply. That's correct because it's immediate action. Question 13, what is used to calculate the PD? So that will be percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. So A, B is wrong. C is also wrong. Percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. So this is E. Question 14, after a series of poor harvests, a government imposes an effective maximum price on the cereals, and what will be a consequence of this policy? A maximum price will result in a shortage, because this is a demand curve and this is a supply curve. So you can see there's less supply but more demand. So A, it says both rich and poor people will satisfy demands equally, wrong. B, illegal buying and selling through a black market will be prevented, which is not possible. There will definitely be black market because people will resell the items at a higher price. C, it says rationing will be necessary to ensure a fair distribution of cereals. Yes, that's correct, because you'll have less supply and a lot of demand, so you have to ration the product, the goods. D, it says the market will fail to clear, leaving a surplus of cereals. No, leaving a shortage of cereals, not surplus. That will be for minimum price. So answer is C. Question 15, what will be a transfer payment? Transfer payment does not involve production. So A, it says the payment made by a company to its shareholders out of its profits, which is not correct. B, the payment made for legal document to transfer ownership of a house, which is not correct. C, the payment made to a retired person in the form of pension, yes, that's correct. D, the payment made to a professional sports team for the transfer of player, which is not correct. Because all three of these, for A, B, and D, the transaction takes place when there's production. Like, for example, the shareholders contribute to the company's production. So the payment made by a company to its shareholders is because there's production. B, the payment made for legal document to transfer ownership of the house is also when there's production. You're buying the house, you're selling the house, so it's not a transfer payment. And D, the professional sports team, they contributed to the country by winning in a bunch of competitions, so that's not a transfer payment either. So the best answer is the payment made to a retired person in the form of pension, because they're no longer working, so they are gaining this money without doing anything. They are retired basically, so answer is C. Question 16, the government redistributes income by raising the top rate of income tax and using the money raised to finance additional benefits to students and unemployed. Under which conditions will total spending in the economy increase the most? So this would be when your so you can see that the government redistributes income, raising the top rate of income tax, and finance additional benefits to students and unemployed. So that means that if you want to make the income tax, you want to like gain more of the income tax, the income elasticity demand for top rate income tax payers must be inelastic, because only then they'll pay more in return to gain more. So it has to be less than 1. And then the income elasticity demand for students must be elastic, because you finance the additional benefits. So when they have more benefits, when they'll then be able to spend more. So it has to be more than one. So B, D, it says both are less than one, which is both correct. So answer has to be C. Income elasticity of demand of top rate income taxpayers is less than one, and for the students and unemployed, it would be more than one. And then question 17, the government wishes to increase the supply of houses. It pays a subsidy to big manufacturers to increase supplies of big bricks to S2. And which size of subsidy per unit is required to increase supply to S2? So you can see the quantity is at, there's no alphabets here, so I'm just going to draw like a dot or something. And then we had to, because it says subsidy per unit, so it's from the original price to the subsidized price, so it's P1 to P3. So answer is C. Question 18, why is national defense provided by government? Now, national defense is a public good, it's non-excludable and non-rival. So A, it says in the free market is excludable and rival in consumption, which is not correct. B, it says in the free market is non-excludable and non-rival in consumption, which is correct. C, it says the government has perfect information, so it can set the correct quantity required, which is not really correct, because it's not because of perfect information, it's because it is non-excludable and non-rival. And D, the private sector firm will charge a high price for its use as it is a necessity, which is not correct. In fact, because national defense itself is non-excludable and non-rival, the private sector firm will not even be able to make a profit out of this thing. So it has to be provided by government, so answer is B. Question 19, which statement about a rise in the general price level of country is correct? A, it says it is likely to create economic winners and losers in a country, which is correct, especially for people who are on fixed income and people who are on a non-fixed income. B, it says it is never acceptable to modern governments, which is not correct, because they are okay with mild inflation. They just don't want hyperinflation. So it's not that it's never acceptable, it's just that it has to be certain expected inflation. And C, it means that no goods have fallen in price, which is wrong. Goods have definitely increased in price. But then it doesn't exactly mean that no goods have fallen in price. It all depends. It's not really that every single good will increase in price. And D, it must make the average citizen poorer, which is not correct. It doesn't make every single citizen poorer. It actually makes some people richer. So answer is A. 20, a country's terms of trade change from 100 to 95, which means that the price index of imports is higher than the price index of exports. So what is most likely to cause this change? A, it says the depreciation of the country's currency, which is correct. And then B, a reduction in import tariffs, which is not correct, because a reduction in import tariffs will result in your import prices being lower. And C, a rise in the price of exported goods will actually improve the terms of trade, so it's not correct. And D, an improvement in the balance of trade means that volume of exports is higher, would actually increase the demand, so prices will increase, so that's not correct as well. So the best answer to this would be the depreciation of the country's currency. Because when there's a depreciation in the country's currency, now everything you purchase from other countries will be relatively expensive compared to the ones purchased locally. So yep, that will result in the terms of trade to change from 100 to 95. Option 21, a country replaces a floating exchange rate system with a managed floating exchange rate system, and which statement is correct? So now instead of floating exchange rate, it's now managed floating exchange rate. So A, it says its central bank will have to intervene more frequently, which is correct. B, it says the central bank will need to hold fewer foreign currency reserves, which is wrong. The central bank will need to hold more foreign currency reserves. C, the value of its currency will be determined by its major trading partners, which is not correct, because now it's managed float instead of floating. And D, it says the value of its currency will be determined by the value of the US dollar, which is, there's no evidence here saying, there's nothing here that says that it's determined by the value of US dollar, so it's not correct. So answer is A. Question 22, what will be the immediate effect of a devaluation of the economy's foreign exchange rate? So if there's a devaluation, that means that the price would then increase for imported goods. So A, it says the price of imported goods will fall, which is not correct. B, it says the price of imported goods in the domestic country currency will rise, which is correct. C, it says the price of imported goods in the foreign currency will fall, which is not correct. And D, it says the price of imported goods in the foreign currency will rise. Because here it says that it is a devaluation of the economy's foreign exchange rate, so it has to be a domestic currency. That's the first thing that will be affected. That will be immediate effect. That will be imported goods will become more expensive. Question 23, a country has a deficit on the current account of its balance of payments, and what might help the country to reduce its deficit? So it has a deficit because there is more outflow of money than your inflow. So A, it says a decrease in its real income tax, which is not correct. You'll actually end up letting more people purchasing imported goods. B, a decrease in its tariffs, which will result in more people purchasing foreign goods. C, it says an increase in the level of employment, which is correct because when there's an increase in level of employment, this will bring about a higher inflow of money, like you can collect more taxes. And D, an increase in subsidies to exporters, which is not correct because if you increase your subsidies, then people can purchase the items at a lower price, and this would actually result in more outflow money. So I say C. Question 24, the diagram shows the effect of removing a tariff on imports of good X into country Y. And what is the volume in million units of the extra international trade? So you can see that when there's a tariff, your domestic supply would be at 10 million, and then your domestic demand will be at 17 million. So you have to minus 17 with 10. So you get 7 million for your imported supply. And then for your, after removing the tariff, now the domestic supply is at 8 million, and domestic demand is at 20 million. So minus that, you get 12. So 12 minus 7, you get 5. So answer is B. Because instead of 7 million, now it's 12 million. So you have to minus 12 with 7 and you get 5. So 24 is B. Question 25, which item should be recorded in the financial account of a country's balance of payments? This is not in the current syllabus, but it's in the previous syllabus, but we'll do it anyways. So A, it says foreign aid by China to assist in infrastructure projects, which is not under financial account. B, it says investments by Middle Eastern oil producing countries through the purchase of land and property assets in Europe, so that's under financial account because it's investments. And then C, it says payments by USA to other countries which house American military bases is not under financial account. D, it says profits and dividends paid by multinational companies based in Indonesia to shareholders. This is not under financial account as well. So the thing that's under financial account will be investments, so answer is B. Question 26, the table shows the country's consumer price index for March and April 2018. So the CPI in March 2018 is 151.3 and April 2018 is 148.6. So this means that there is there's an increase in the purchasing power of money. It doesn't necessarily mean that this means that there is deflation. So yeah, that means that there's deflation, and let's see which one is the best answer. A, it says there was a decrease in the annual rate inflation. That's disinflation, so this inflation. So this is wrong. B, it says there was an decrease in real interest rates. Nope. If there's a decrease in real interest rates, the CPI will increase. C, there was an increase in purchasing power of money. Yes, that's correct. D, there was an increase in standard of living. There's no way to prove that there's an increase in standard of living, so no. I'll say C. Question 27, the diagram shows the rate of inflation over time in 4 countries. And which country has a rising real value of money over time? So everything that has a positive inflation rate is not correct. So answer is D. Because for D, the inflation rate is negative, meaning that it is deflation. When there's deflation, there is a decrease in the CPI, and when there's a decrease in the CPI, this means that the value of money that you have in real terms is actually higher. The value itself is higher. So let's say the inflation rate is positive, regardless of whether or not it's declining, it will still result in an increase in inflation, and it will decrease the value of real value of money. So the answer will be the negative inflation rate. So answer is D. Question 28, the table shows the CPI for an economy expressed as an index number, and which action is the government most likely to take to achieve price stability. So you can see in 2016 is 100, in 2017 is 103, in 2018 is 101, and in 2019 is 97. So now we try to get back to more than 100 or fix it at 100. So what we do here is we need to depreciate the exchange rate or something related to that. So A, it says appreciate the exchange rate, which is not correct. B, it says decrease the budget deficit, which is not correct. C, increase the money supply, which is correct. And D, increase the rate of interest, which is not correct. Because all 3 of these things will result in a decrease in your aggregate demand, which will decrease your price level, which will result in more deflation. So we need to increase the money supply in order to increase our AD. So answer is C. Question 29. Other things being equal, what is most likely to be reduced by falling labor productivity? So A, it says a balance of trade deficit, which is not correct. B, it says the internal value of money, which is correct, because when there's falling labor productivity, your AS curve will then shift to the left, resulting in a rise in your price level, resulting in inflation. So there's a decrease in the value of money. C, it says the level of unemployment, which is not correct because there's already falling labor productivity to begin with. It doesn't exactly mean that there's a increase. There's no reduction in the level of unemployment. I mean, for falling labor productivity, it would actually be probably because of an increase in the level of unemployment, not reduce. And D, it says reducing the rate of domestic inflation, which is not correct because if it's rate of domestic inflation, your supply curve, your AS curve will have to shift to the right. But in this case, falling labor productivity will result in an AS curve shift to the left, so it's going to result in more domestic inflation. So answer is B. Question 30, a government spends money building more schools, and how might this be classified? So spends money building more schools. Building more schools will be under supply side policy, so C is already wrong. And then spending money is under fiscal policy, so it could be either A or B. But then there's no monetary policy here, so we can exclude monetary policy. So we only have fiscal policy and supply side policy, and no monetary policy, so answer is A. Alright, so this is the end of this paper. I hope you find this video helpful, and do share it out to people who may need this video. And I hope to see you again in the next video, which may be about like the economics passive paper. Till then, this is qiphyedu.